It was one of those spring evenings where everything feels too perfect to disturb. The kind where lilacs perfume the air and the world slows down just enough to let you breathe. There I was, stirring a pot of stew in our weathered suburban kitchen, humming along to something on the radio while Michael watched the game in the living room. 23 years of marriage distilled into the comfortable silence between rooms. I didn't know that night would crack something open inside me. How could I? When the doorbell rang, I remember wiping my hands on my apron, exchanging that wordless glance with Michael. Were you expecting someone? And walking toward whatever was waiting on the other side of that door. He stood there like a ghost from another lifetime. Doug, gray-haired now, but with those same mischievous eyes that hadn't aged a day since he was the best man at our wedding. Leather jacket, wine bottle in one hand, duffel bag in the other. That smile that always made me feel like I was in on some delicious secret. "Hey, Mike," he said, his voice washing over me like an old favorite song you've forgotten the words. Long time. Michael's face transformed instantly. No way, Doug. 2 decades had evaporated between them in seconds. That's how men do it sometimes. Pick up exactly where they left off, while women like me tend to the roots of what's changed. I welcomed him in. What else could I do? He was Michael's oldest friend, the man who disappeared to Oregon after his divorce, the man whose gaze I could still feel on my skin hours after he'd stopped looking. We gathered around our dining table, and the years melted away. Wine flowed, stories spilled, laughter bounced off walls that hadn't heard that particular sound in too long, but something was different. I felt Doug watching me, not who I'd been, but who I'd become. His eyes traced the map of my life with a tenderness that made my chest tighten. It wasn't inappropriate. It was witnessing. And God help me, I felt seen for the first time in years. Later, with Michael on the phone with his brother, Doug and I sat alone in the living room's amber glow. The shadows played across the hardwood floor, dancing to a tune only they could hear. "You know," he said, swirling his wine, "you haven't changed much." I laughed it off. "You need your eyes checked. The mirror tells me otherwise every morning." "I don't mean your face," he said, his voice dropping to something honest and raw. "I mean your presence. You still have that light in you. The heat that rose within me had nothing to do with the wine." "I'm glad you came by," I managed. "It's been a long time." Yeah, too long. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was crowded, with everything unsaid. "I needed this," he finally confessed. "Honestly, I didn't just happen to be in the area. I planned this. I've been lost lately, and I thought maybe coming back to something familiar would help." I saw it then, the weariness behind his charm, the kind of soul-deep exhaustion that comes from weathering storms alone. "You're always welcome here, Doug," I said, meaning it more than I should have. "Thank you. That means more than you know." When Michael returned, something had already shifted. Not an affair, not a betrayal, but something deeply, terrifyingly human. A mirror reflecting parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. That night, lying beside my sleeping husband, I thought about Doug's eyes and wondered, what exactly did he see in me that I could no longer see myself? Morning arrived with uncomfortable clarity. Michael had left early to help his cousin with a roofing job. The house was silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the sound of Doug's coffee cup against our kitchen table. He sat there in yesterday's wrinkled shirt, looking both out of place and like he belonged. "Morning," he said with that soft smile that seemed to carry its own weather system. "Morning," I replied, pulling my robe tighter. "Sleep okay?" "Better than I have in weeks. Your couch has magical powers." We shared that strange, weighted silence again. The kind where words queue up behind your teeth but don't quite make it past your lips. "Still as peaceful here as I remember," he said, gazing out the window. "It's like nothing's changed, and everything has." I took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. That's how life feels in your 50s, familiar and strange all at once. His eyes found mine again with that quiet intensity that made me feel both exposed and protected. "You ever think about how we got here? The turns we took, or didn't?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not too much. That road can get a little heavy." We walked through the park later that morning, sunlight filtering through the oak trees. The world slowed down again, making space for conversations that matter. "I almost called you once," he said, as we sat on a bench near the pond. "Years ago, right after my divorce. I even dialed the number, but I hung up. Why didn't you call?" He shrugged. eyes fixed on some distant point. I guess I didn't know what I was looking for, and I didn't want to make things complicated. I turned to face him fully. Doug, I'm not someone you have to protect from your mess. We all have our own. He laughed softly. I know. It's just, you were always this light for me. Even when we were younger, you had this warmth, this kindness. It made me feel like I could be a better version of myself. His voice cracked, and something cracked inside me too. I reached for his hand. Just a touch, a moment of connection. But the way he looked at me, like that small gesture contained the universe. Doug, I said gently, you don't have to carry all this alone. He held my gaze. Neither do you. 3 words. That's all it took to make me question everything I thought I knew about my own contentment. We walked back with our hands brushing. Occasionally, each touch electric, each moment suspended between what was and what could be. When Michael returned that afternoon, Doug transformed again. Loud, jovial, teasing Michael about his thinning hair. The surface was smooth, untroubled, but beneath, tectonic plates were shifting. That night, washing dishes alone with the cool night air drifting through the cracked window, I closed my eyes and felt it all. The ache of recognition, the dangerous thrill of possibility, the guilt of even considering it. It wasn't love, not yet. It wasn't even romance. It was awakening. The next day carried the weight of inevitability. Doug helped with breakfast cleanup after Michael left for golf. We moved around each other in careful orbits, hyper-aware of every accidental touch, every shared glance. I should probably head out today, he said, drying his hands. I've already imposed long enough. You're not imposing, Doug. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Still, I don't want to overstay. I leaned against the counter, studying him. Are you leaving because you want to or because you're afraid of staying? The question hung between us, naked and honest. I don't want to cause trouble, he said finally. You haven't, I replied. Not yet, he laughed softly. That yet says everything. I should have walked away. I should have changed the subject. Instead, I kept pushing towards something dangerous and true. You're not the only one who feels confused, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what this is or what it means, but I feel it too. He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, waiting for rejection that didn't come. I keep thinking about how different life could have been, he said, his voice low and intimate. If things had gone another way, if I'd said something years ago. And what would you have said? My heart hammered against my ribs. He paused, then whispered that I always felt something for you, even when I shouldn't have. The room fell silent except for the wall clock counting moments we couldn't take back. Then, his hand found mine again. Just a touch, nothing more, but I didn't pull away. I let it happen. I let it exist between us like a question too dangerous to answer. I don't want to hurt Michael, I said, my voice trembling. Neither do I. He replied, we stood suspended between right and wrong, memory and desire, but we didn't cross that final line. Doug stepped back. You're a good woman, he said, voice tight with emotion. Better than I deserve to be near right now. He grabbed his coat. I'll pack up. I'll be gone before Michael gets home. I didn't stop him. I just stood there, heart pounding, eyes stinging, wondering how something could feel so complete and so empty all at once. The front door closed behind him an hour later. Doug was gone. Michael came home whistling, oblivious to the earthquake that had nearly destroyed everything. Did Doug head out? I nodded, keeping my back turned. Yeah, said he had to hit the road. Michael kissed my temple, his arm around my waist. He's a good guy, always was. Yeah, I whispered. He really is. But in the quiet that followed, something deep inside me had already shifted. Not guilt, not regret, just the sudden, powerful realization that I had forgotten parts of myself, forgotten how it felt to be seen, to be stirred from within, to feel that dangerous spark of possibility. Weeks passed. Doug didn't call or write. I didn't reach out, either. Life resumed its familiar rhythm. Quiet breakfasts, evening news, folding laundry, watering plants. The kind of ordinary that feels like shelter until it starts to feel like a cage. Michael hadn't changed. He was still good, steady, kind. A man who had given me decades of partnership, built a life with me from nothing, weathered our hardest. Years with grace. I loved him. That was never in question. But loving someone and feeling alive with them aren't always the same thing. Doug didn't seduce me. He didn't try to. All he did was see me, really see me, and remind me of a version of myself I'd let slip away without noticing. That reminder lingered like perfume on skin long after the bottle is closed. One evening, about a month later, I sat alone on the back porch wrapped in a sweater, watching moonlight spill across our garden. Michael was inside watching a documentary, the windows casting warm yellow rectangles onto the lawn. I found myself thinking about that moment in the kitchen, the quiet tension, the electricity, the way my name sounded different in Doug's mouth. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. That moment had held up a mirror I hadn't known I needed. In that reflection, I saw a woman who still had the capacity for longing, for wonder, for being moved by something other than routine. I didn't feel shame for that. I felt human. Later that night, slipping into bed beside Michael, I studied his face, softened by time and familiarity. "Hey," I whispered. He stirred. I've been thinking, I want us to go somewhere. Just the two of us. Maybe the coast or up to the mountains?" His eyes opened slightly. "Really?" "Yeah, I think we need something different. A reset." He reached for my hand, his fingers warm and familiar. "I'd like that." I never told Michael how close we came to crossing a line with Doug, and maybe I never will, because that moment wasn't about infidelity. It was about rediscovery, and that rediscovery led me back to myself and back to this marriage in ways I never expected. The next morning, I found the small note Doug had left behind, still tucked in the hall table drawer, between old receipts and a spare key. It read, "Thank you for reminding me of who I used to be and who I still might become. Take care of your beautiful life." Doug, I held that note for a long time, my fingers tracing its edges. Then, without fully knowing why, I smiled, because I had found something in those few days. Not a man, not a romance, but a part of myself I had neglected for far too long. And in finding it, I was able to return home to my own life with softer eyes and a fuller heart. Maybe we only get a few of those moments in a lifetime, the ones that wake us up. That shift, how we see everything, the ones that arrive quietly in the shape of an old friend at your doorstep and leave behind more than they take. Doug had been one of those moments for me. What would you have done if you were standing in that kitchen, caught between comfort and possibility, between the life you've built and the life you could feel stirring just beneath your skin? Be honest. If someone held up a mirror and showed you parts of yourself you'd forgotten existed, would you turn away, or would you keep looking until everything changed?